What happens when athletes stop hiding enhancement and start competing with it openly? This is the Enhanced Games, a competition where performance-enhancing substances aren't treated like a scandal. It's part of the premise.
Curly is going to take it.
Through the power of science, we are the best that we could ever think of.
New world record!
The Enhanced Games were supposed to change sport forever. Performance-enhancing substances, medical supervision, million-dollar incentives. A public company built around human enhancement. And a promise: if athletes were finally allowed to enhance openly, we would see what human bodies are really capable of. But then the games happened. Only one unofficial world record was broken. That record immediately became controversial. Multiple clean athletes beat enhanced athletes, and the real question got a lot more interesting. What happens when you build an entire business model around enhanced performance and breaking records, put athletes on stage, attach money, products, investors, and public markets, and the records mostly don't break? Is this the future of sport, or did we just watch the world's most expensive supplement ad struggle to prove its own thesis? Before we decide whether this is brilliant, dangerous, ridiculous, or maybe all three, we need to understand what the Enhanced Games actually are. The basic idea is simple. Take elite athletes, remove traditional anti-doping rules, allow FDA-approved performance-enhancing substances under medical supervision, put them on stage, offer major prize money, and see what happens. The organizers argue that sport is already full of enhancement. Training science, recovery tools, supplements, banned drugs. Their claim is that the current system is not honest enough. So instead of pretending performance enhancement doesn't exist, they bring it to the open. That's the clean version. The more complicated version is that the Enhanced Games are not just a sporting event. They're also a business, a public company, a media property, and a health platform, and potentially a product demo for the same world of hormones, peptides, supplements, and performance protocols that the event is built around. Doping did not begin with the Enhanced Games. For as long as humans have competed, athletes have searched for an edge. Some edges are legal, some are illegal, and some are celebrated until they're banned. And some are hidden so well that the truth comes out years later. Sport has always been a negotiation between effort and advantage, and we just keep moving the line. In the modern era, anti-doping became one of the moral foundations of international sport. WADA was created to coordinate that fight globally, but even with testing, sanctions, and banned lists, doping never disappeared. It became a cat and mouse game. Better substances, better masking, better testing, better excuses. This is where the Enhanced Games becomes much more interesting, because this was not just an event, it was also a business pitch. Enhanced Group, the company behind the Enhanced Games, went public on May 8th, 2026, just a few weeks before the Games. The Washington Post reported that the Games also served as a platform for broader telehealth business marketing supplements and treatments through the parent company. So here's the uncomfortable question. If the company running on the competition also wants to sell the idea of enhancement to consumers, do the athletes become competitors, or do they become the product demo? This is where the Enhanced Games becomes more than a sports story, because the company is not just staging a competition, it's also selling a vision. And the vision is not only watch enhanced athletes break records, it's also enhancement can be safe, supervised, desirable, and eventually available to you. That's a very different business model. Now, every sport has sponsors: shoes, drinks, watches, recovery tools, apparel. But usually the sponsor is adjacent to the performance. Here, the business is much closer to the thing creating the performance. That does not automatically make it corrupt. However, it does make it worth thinking about. But here's the thing, is the Enhanced Games a radical break from sport, or just an honest version of what sport already is?
Let's start with the questions that people around the world have been waiting for you to answer. Did you ever take banned substances to enhance your cycling performance?
Yes, I've been wanting to come clean ever since 2005.
That's it. Then, I win the gold medal and I
and I lost it.
WADA will say this is unique, and in one obvious way, they're right. Traditional sport is built around anti-doping rules, while the enhanced games is built around rejecting them. But anyone who's been around in competitive fitness, bodybuilding, track, swimming, cycling, CrossFit, or professional sport knows the uncomfortable truth. Money and performance have always created pressure. Coming from the fitness world, I don't buy the idea that competing for money is some pure moral universe. CrossFit has had doping cases, Olympic sports have had doping cases, cycling built an entire era around doping scandals. So the enhanced games did not invent the incentive, they just removed the shame curtain. Even the definition of enhancement changes over time. Caffeine was once banned above certain thresholds and later removed from WADA's prohibited list.
Coffee, 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 cappuccino.
So when people say performance enhancing, we have to ask, where is the line? Is it the substance, the dose, the risk, the money, or who gets to approve it? The enhanced games argument is that athletes deserve to be paid, and that argument lands harder than people want to admit. In traditional sport, athletes can be world-class and still be broke. In the enhanced games, winners could earn large prize money, and some athletes were reportedly incentivized with appearance fees, contracts, and even equity stakes. Personally, I love that athletes have a chance to be compensated for the work that they put in, enhanced or not. But if the money is large enough, we have to be honest about the word choice. Is it freedom, or is it financial pressure wearing a lab coat? WADA warned that the event could encourage wider PED use, especially among young people, and raised concerns about serious health risks and drug stacking. And that's where the athlete side gets ugly. If one athlete enhances, others may feel they have to. If the enhanced athlete gets paid, the clean athlete has to decide what their principles are worth. That's not a clean moral environment, that's pressure. I saw multiple athletes get injured during the event, and of course, that could be from a whole list of reasons, but this is where the anti-doping side has a point. WADA warned that the medical supervision does not make powerful drugs risk-free, especially when athletes stack substances or use them for elite performance. Now, if the entire premise is superhuman output, what happens when the output is not superhuman? The results of the games is where the entire story changed, because if you build a sporting event around the idea that enhancement unlocks the next level of human performance, the audience expects next level. The pitch was not, come watch slightly faster races, it was, come watch what humans can do when the old rules are gone. Only one unofficial world record was broken at the inaugural games at the very last event, where Greek swimmer Christian Kolomev swam 20.81 seconds in the men's 50-meter freestyle. That was 0.7 seconds faster than the official world record, but it will not count officially because he was using performance-enhancing substances and wearing a swimsuit banned in traditional elite competition. Now, to be fair, that was always part of the deal. The enhanced games were not asking World Aquatics to bless the record, they were creating their own universe. But if you create your own universe, you better make it spectacular. And for most of the night, that didn't happen. Several high-profile record attempts failed. Weightlifting fell short, strongmen fell short, sprinting performances were not rewriting history, and before the final swim, the entire event was staring at a brutal possibility. What if the enhanced games happened and no records fell? That question matters because for a normal sporting event, no records is fine, but for a company built around enhanced performance, no records is a problem. And even that one unofficial world record at the very last of 22 events became controversial. Online viewers started questioning whether the timing matched what they saw on the screen, and some claimed that the time appeared before the swimmer touched the wall. Enhanced did strongly deny that, and they called the claims unfounded and defended the timing system. But the controversy matters for one reason. This was the only record. When a competition breaks 10 records, one argument is noise, but when it breaks one, that one has to carry the whole story. And that's a very fragile place for a brand to be. Because now the conversation is not just did the athletes enhance, it's did the event actually prove what it promised to prove? But the most interesting result of the night might not have been the record. It might have been the clean athletes, because several athletes who competed without performance-enhancing drugs won their events. Fred Kerley won the men's 100 meters. Trissa and Evelyn won the women's 100 meters. Hunter Armstrong won the men's 50-meter backstroke, and that complicates the entire premise. If the enhanced games exist to prove what enhanced performance can do, what does it mean when clean athletes beat the enhanced athletes? Does it mean the enhanced athletes use the wrong protocols? Does it mean 4 to 6 months of enhancement isn't enough time? Does it mean talent still matters more? Or does it mean that the event was underpowered? Or does it incorrectly assume performance is mostly a chemistry problem? For every Michael Phelps, there are a million kids who jumped in a pool dreaming of becoming him. For every Wayne Gretzky, Tom Brady, Serena Williams, Usain Bolt, or Simone Biles, there are countless people who trained, sacrificed, competed, obsessed, and genuinely believed that they had what it took. And most of them didn't. And that sounds harsh, but this is the nature of elite sport. At the very top, everyone is talented, everyone works hard, everyone has access to coaching, recovery, nutrition, equipment, and pressure. So what separates the best from the almost best? Is it purely physical, or is there something else? Something you can't inject, something you can't prescribe, something you can't put into a capsule and sell through a telehealth platform or pitch to investors. Because champions are not just bodies with better output, they are people who can access something most people can't. The pain tolerance, the timing, the obsession, the calm under pressure, the ability to perform when the whole world is watching. That final 0.1% is where sport gets almost impossible to manufacture. And maybe that's what the enhanced games ran into. Not a lack of chemistry, a lack of champions, not because the athletes weren't talented, they absolutely were, but because the world records are not normal athletic achievements. They are statistical lightning strikes. They require the right body, the right mind, the right day, the right conditions, the right opponent, the right pressure, and sometimes just enough madness to keep going when everyone else hit the wall. So if the unspoken promise of the enhanced games was that enhancement would shatter world records, then the failure to deliver that spectacle might reveal a misunderstanding of what world records actually are. They're not just measurements of muscle, blood, hormones, and recovery. They're measurements of greatness under pressure, and that is much harder to engineer. There was another layer that's harder to quantify: the injuries. I will say this, at the event, we saw many bodies breaking down in real time on the competition floor. Now that happens in every serious sport. Injuries are not unique to the enhanced games. And from the outside, we can't say what caused what. Was it the enhancement, the training load, age, pressure, bad timing, or, just sport being sport? We won't know, but that uncertainty is the point. The body is not a spreadsheet. You can increase output in one system and then overload another. You can gain strength and lose mobility. You can recover faster and still break down. You can push performance and still miss the moment. When performance becomes the product, the body becomes the risk, and that's true in every sport. But the enhanced games makes it impossible to look away, because if everyone's got a price, then the possible risk of enhancement means that the juice has to be worth the squeeze. And when you're staring at $1 million, do you push in ways that you shouldn't? So what happens if the spectacle does not deliver? This is where the business question gets brutal. If this were only a private stunt, underwhelming results wouldn't be as embarrassing. But if this is a public company, if investors are involved, if products are being sold, if the event is supposed to prove that enhancement works, then the scoreboard becomes part of the business case. And that's a very different kind of pressure. Enhanced stock dropped half right after the event. The Washington Post reported that Enhanced was using sport to help mainstream performance and longevity therapies. And the Financial Times reported that Enhanced public market pitch included events, media, consumer products, technology, supplements, peptides, hormones, and metabolic modulators. So if the company spends millions creating a spectacle around enhanced performance and the records mostly don't break, what does that signal? That the products don't work, that the model doesn't work, that the athletes needed more time, or that greatness is harder to manufacture than the pitch deck implied. That is the uncomfortable thing that the enhanced games may have exposed. Drugs can change the body, they can change recovery, they can change risk, they can change incentives, but they cannot automatically manufacture greatness. So what did this event actually expose? I don't think the enhanced games answer the question of whether doping should be accepted. I think they expose a much harder question. What do we actually value in sport? Is it the record, the body, the discipline, the risk, the money, the show, or the illusion that we're watching something pure? The enhanced games may not have proved that enhancement creates superhumans, but they did prove that sports' moral lines are not as stable as we pretend. If the enhanced games succeeded, they forced traditional sport to defend its definition of fairness. If they failed, they revealed that performance is not something you can simply buy, inject, package, and sell. And honestly, that might be the most important result of all. As an athlete, I understand the obsession. I understand wanting to know what the body can do. I understand optimizing nutrition, recovery, hormones, sleep, strength, and every tiny variable that changes performance. And I understand how that's easy for optimization to become identity. That's where this gets dangerous, because once performance becomes your identity, it's very hard to know when enough is enough. And when there's money on the table, it gets even harder. The question is not whether enhanced belongs in sport, it's already there. The question is whether bringing it into the open makes sport more honest or just more dangerous. That's what I went there trying to understand, and I'm still thinking about it. Some will call the enhanced games a failure, and if the promise was shattering world records, they might be right. But if the goal was to force a serious conversation about sport and greatness, money and human limits, then maybe it worked better than people want to admit. Because for the love of the game sounds great on a poster, but at the highest level, sport is business, and it's a brutal one. Athletes are not just playing, they're competing for contracts and sponsors, legacy, media attention, and survival. And if performance is the currency of that business, then we have to ask an uncomfortable question. Why is enhancement treated as uniquely immoral in sport when every other competitive industry celebrates optimization? We don't get mad at Apple for building better chips. We don't call Meta unethical for using data to gain advantage. We don't shame companies for hiring smarter people, using better tools, exploiting legal edges, or outspending competitors. That's called strategy. But when an athlete tries to optimize the body, suddenly we talk about purity and fairness and the spirit of sport. Maybe that standard makes sense. Maybe the body deserves a different moral category. But we should at least be honest about the contradiction. Because elite sport has never been pure. It's always been shaped by money, access, technology, coaching, medicine, recovery, genetics, and risk. The enhanced games didn't create that reality, they just made it impossible to ignore. If you have an opinion, I want to hear it, because this is one of those topics where the answer says a lot about what you think sport is supposed to be. And that's a wrap. If you appreciate this content, consider giving this video a like or subscribing for future Earn Your Freedom content, or consider joining as a channel member. And until the next video, get the fuck outside.